On this episode, we talk about Seth Rollins kicking off Raw, the state of the Divas division, John Cena having an awesome year, WWE July 4th special, your questions, and more now on Byte That.
I ruined it, I apologize.
Welcome everybody, you are listening to episode 97 of Byte That, a weekly podcast where we discuss, we sit down and have this deep, dark conversation about the WWE and maybe the rest of professional wrestling. Thanks for tuning in and checking out the show. Remember, we are available every single Tuesday night on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, ByteThat.com, and of course, for this and tons more, check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ByteThatCast. And by the way, just a quick side note, those that are subscribed to our RSS feeds, if you get it through iTunes, etc., you may be noticing some issues that have been happening with some episodes that when we post a new one, some get overwritten. We are working on that. You can check out all the episodes over at the YouTube channel, youtube.com/ByteThatCast. Meanwhile, we'll be talking to Hipcast, fixing that. But, you know, let's get to the positive stuff, the introductions first. My name is Juan Velez, and I am from San Juan, Puerto Rico. And as always, I am joined first from Boston, Massachusetts, Mr. Energizer himself, Ryan McNulty.
Mr. could have seen The Rock at a house show, but missed it. And
you didn't.
That's all I got to say about that.
Sad face here. And the other guy in recovery from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Keith Poshik, everybody.
Indeed, I am here, I am large, and I am in charge. If you hung out with us on Saturday at our little Twitch stream at twitchtv.com, twitch.tv/ByteThat, it'd be good if I knew our own URL.
That's probably good.
I was a little under the weather. Had a little bit of work done, but you know, I'm feeling good about wrestling. You mentioned Let's Get Dark. Dark is where I thrive. That's the word I'm looking for. So let's get dark.
It's a deep word. You know, we have a lot of things to talk about as we do every episode. Let's break it down first. So the Authority. This is how Raw usually starts. We've talked about it before, but this was a different Authority because usually we hear the King of Kings, you know, the tradition, what we talk about every podcast. Now we got Seth Rollins, J&J Security. Jamie Noble's alive, by the way. He's alive, guys. He's good.
Yeah, kudos for him for showing up.
Yes, and then we got Kane, who's going to Hawaii, and without any more context, I want to get your reaction because, as I mentioned, we've talked about the Authority opening Raw before. What about this Authority?
I'm going to Hawaii, yay! I just randomly remembered that. Authority without Triple H and Stephanie, I think this is kind of their way of finally letting Seth Rollins kind of be his own guy, like, maybe have him sort of be the leader of the Authority, because at the end of the day, Seth is their future guy, and they don't really want Triple H and Stephanie hogging the spotlight too much.
Indeed, like eventually they should take a backseat role because they've been the Authority for what, almost 2 years now? So it's just kind of refreshing. Like, it is still the Authority starting Raw and the Authority ending Raw. Like, that pattern is still there. But it's just kind of nice to see it in a different way. Because if that's not going to change, you might as well change it up, like, on the inside.
Exactly, and that's why I love it so much, because even though this lasted about as long as other Authority segments last, you know, we complain about the length, like 10, 20 minutes, but this is so refreshing. I really loved it. I think Seth Rollins, we talk about it all the time, is like the perfect heel where whenever he laughs, just something about his voice makes you both laugh.
That laugh.
Yeah, and you want to like punch him, but in a good way, you know?
On YouTube, I found this like 10-minute compilation of just Seth Rollins' heel laugh, and it's incredible. Search it, find it, watch it. It's incredible.
That needs to be like my wake-up tone.
Just the most evil wake-up possible every single day. Just every single day.
You have a beautiful laugh, Keith. But Mr. McNulty,
thank you.
Getting to you.
Yes.
How did you like this? It was a lighthearted segment. I mean, everything from the Hawaii. Could you sort of break down your thought process as it kept going?
You know, I'm not super into this Authority stuff recently. I like that Seth Rollins is kind of taking charge. And it seemed kind of like product placement mania with Apple Watches and cars and things like that. And there was no payoff for the gifts. And I think that's still okay, though, because we're so trained that, oh, if heels get these awesome gifts, the baby faces are going to come out and ruin it. But that didn't happen. And so I actually do appreciate that they did something different for once. It was just, I don't know, I wasn't really into it.
Indeed, but I think that payoff is still going to happen. It's just going to be a couple weeks down the road when, say, Seth Rollins loses to Brock Lesnar at Battleground, and he's like, oh, but I got you the gifts, and I still lost the title. I want them all back, and it all kind of falls apart.
I'm actually the complete opposite of Ryan for once, where I completely love the segment because every week it just feels like they're just stalling for the next show. You know, they keep talking about next week when we do this or in the pay-per-view. It was really nice to get this moment to sort of appreciate. It's kind of interesting because this type of segment usually happens to a babyface, you know, when The Rock's life and all that stuff. But here we have a complete heel faction. They're all bad guys. But it works so well. Like Jamie Noble got almost like a standing ovation for a little bit. I love the Apple Watch thing because it showed that they're all human beings, regardless of being good or bad.
I'm with you, but I do think it went on a little long. I think once they like all went up to the stage and started just kind of hanging out around the car, it should have ended around then because it started to drag really at that point.
Now, it seems like the band is together. Because for the longest time, Seth Rollins
like
and Kane...
Like 3MB's back?
Hopefully. I mean, Heath Slater. You know, I'm just going to talk about these. I got nothing with Heath Slater right now, sadly. I was going to try, but hopefully someday he will definitely be a thing. By the way, did you know that he faced Kevin Owens for the NXT title? I believe it was on a main event. I didn't even know that.
I did not know that either.
Well, it was a match.
It's news to me.
That happened.
Yeah.
Like
Heath Slater was almost the
SmackDown,
NXT champion.
If things on SmackDown don't count, then main event, holy crap.
Yeah, but getting back to this, is this the new authority? Because it was so crystal clear that Triple H and Stephanie are out of the picture, or at least are trying to remove themselves from it. So do you like that? Where we're still getting the authority, which people are complaining left and right about, but we're getting a new version of it.
Well, it's pretty much like I said, is that if you want Seth Rollins to really be the guy, he's got to take over. He's got to be the leader. Because he, you know, even though it is kind of heel-like to kind of hide behind the authority, if they truly want this guy to be like the top heel of the company going forward, he needs to kind of stand on his own as the leader of the authority, like undisputed pretty much. And sure, we're still going to see Triple H and Stephanie, but I feel like at least the best direction for them to go is to just continue to have Seth Rollins in that position. Although, I mean, things could change, but I think they're going in the right direction with it.
I agree, and they're just playing to Seth Rollins' strength so well because he plays that cowardly heel that hides behind people just so perfectly. And, like, he can still be the leader even with Triple H and Stephanie there. It's just kind of a, when things get out of control, I go talk to Triple H and Stephanie and they make it all better situation, almost kind of amplifying the cowardly heel.
The last thing I want to talk about this... On last week's podcast, we talked about the whole Brock Lesnar beatdown. So, you know, Brock Lesnar's probably going to be gone for a while. But it to me was really nice how Seth openly...
Or till Saturday.
Yeah, or till Saturday.
Maybe.
Which was nice. Like Seth Rollins openly brought up, he's on a plane to Japan. Do you like that situation that's happening between Brock and Rollins? Because obviously we're seeing this new face of Brock where he's sort of more human maybe? So what do you guys think about that? Do you like the payoff from last week's and then now?
What exactly was the payoff this week?
Well, it's sort of that sort of Seth Rollins
just
is being
him
more,
not being there? Well, it's like with Brock, it's different because it's like you pretty much don't expect him to be there. But at the same time, I guess you can kind of have it be, I mean, Heyman wasn't even there, you know, so they could have had Heyman come out and talk some trash or whatever, but I think it's not really a babyface thing to do to have your manager show up and not you. So I think it's like they're just going to keep Heyman and Lesnar as only together, probably. And we're probably just not going to see Brock until maybe the week before, maybe not even till Battleground. But I think it's fine.
That you just brought up something I hadn't thought about before. When Brock was heel, it would be, you know, Heyman coming out the weeks that he wasn't there. But now that the book has switched.
Yeah, you can't have your manager do your talking for you because then you're just going to look like a coward.
Gee, it's something
But
so
on
obvious.
the other side of the coin, it's almost good that he's not there, especially for Seth Rollins, because Seth Rollins can talk the biggest game ever when Brock Lesnar's not there.
Yeah, not only
and
that,
then just
though,
kind of
it's
build
like,
Brock
if
up.
you also
from
just
that.
have Heyman, then it's like you leave the crowd wanting to see Lesnar because he's supposed to be the good guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a lot of elements.
Basically, logic in wrestling. It's not playing to the factor that's happening right now, but obviously, come Tokyo, super curious to see what the hell's going to happen between Brock and Kofi, who's probably going to die.
Brock
A
Lesnar
slaughter.
versus Kofi Kingston Tokyo Drift.
Oh, man. Now, this is where things get a little serious. So I was watching Raw, which is this Monday Night Wrestling program. And guys, I think I had a revelation.
Sports entertainment program.
Yeah, sports
by the way.
entertainment. But I had a revelation about the Divas
Get
division.
your branding right.
That I want to sort of throw it out there. Give me some feedback. Let me know if I'm completely wrong or if this sort of helps. Because every week we have this thing where we talk about the Divas division for 2-3 minutes. We say, oh, it's the same thing. Let's move on, right?
We talk about the Divas division slightly longer than the average Divas match.
Exactly. And I keep thinking to myself, is the problem us or the WWE? Because if it happens every week, maybe this is catering to somebody out there that is deeply invested into that. Maybe that's what it is. And then I thought to myself, what if the Divas division is a parody of what women's wrestling is supposed to be, as opposed to being women's wrestling? Now think about it. It seems kind of weird at first, but like, look at Raw. Let me break it down here. You got the Bell Twins and you got Alicia Fox, right? Who are the heels, and guess how they act? How it is whenever other divas act like heel. You know, they act like words I don't want to say right now on the show, but basically, you know, show off like is there a PG way?
Conceited, catty.
Yeah, conceited, catty, yeah, like ratchet, like all these different things. And then it's like, is it just a parody?
I can't believe you just said ratchet.
Yes.
I need to call you out on that.
I needed to say something. But what you guys think about
All right.
that?
I think you should really, in the state that it's in right now, I think you should really stop calling it the Divas division and call it the Bellas division. Because at this point, every single week, all the Divas segments, women's segments, are based around the Bellas. Like, it goes back to this whole give Divas a chance thing if you want to go back that far. And it's like turned into this weird give the Bellas a chance because they've just taken the entire spotlight and taken it for themselves.
But even then, think about all the Divas characters post Lita and Trish. The heel is almost always, like, think about Laycool, think about all these different divas, you know, when they did the Piggy James angle, the Bellas when they were both heel, like Naomi when she turned heel, Alicia Fox when she turned heel for the 545th time. It's always the same character. The Divas division are two people.
Even when Lita and Trish were still around, it was still the same character. Like, think about heel Trish, think about heel Lita. They still played that exact same character.
They had layers. So they had the Hardy Boys. Like, they had different layers.
I just think that's because they were good characters.
How is it anything but just being lazy? How is it not just lazy, poor writing, and they don't care? I don't see how it's anything else.
Yes, and
I think you're looking way too deep into it, thinking it's a parody of itself.
I agree with Ryan because you mentioned the difference between Lita and Trish. That's when the product was good. So you had those different layers. You had that deep thing because it wasn't just this flat on its face kind of weird
then make
thing.
it stop. Make it better.
Lita and Trish, I mean, they had good storylines. And I mean, even then I would say their characters weren't super deep, but they were at least easy to identify and relatively consistent. And I think that's Ryan, all you can ask. I mean, you can look at a lot of wrestlers and, you know, their character may not be really deep, but they're still compelling, you know? Like
Ryan, who's a crappy football team that fumbles a lot?
I don't know, like the Jacksonville Jaguars or something.
All right. Well, the WWE creative team has fumbled the Divas division more than the Jacksonville Jaguars because
the New York
Jets.
Have this thing. Jets are a better example because you get to trash the Jets any chance you can get.
Fair enough. Well, to go with my example, they fumble it over and over because they have something for a little bit, and then they just fumble the entire thing and kind of go back into the routine. Like, think back to AJ Lee during her promo that they had, and then how things changed for a little bit, and then it just went back to normal. Think about the Give Divas a Chance thing, where they're having longer matches, there's a little more story development, but it's still going back to the normal thing.
The Give Divas a Chance was, let's do a few weeks and we'll throw them a bone, and then, back to the status quo a couple weeks later.
Now, this may get a little controversial, but I want to ask you to be perfectly honest with this, the very first thing that comes out of your mouth. Ready? The Divas division. Completely exclude NXT. We're talking, the Bellas, everybody that we see on Raw and or SmackDown main event, whatever. Would you mind if they went all out with Give Divas a Chance to the point where the Divas were an equal part of the show as the men? Would you guys be okay with that? With the established roster. Like, think of, the Miz went from tag team to champion. What about the Divas? Could they have an equal role?
I think they could, but it can't be a 0 to 60 thing. Like, boom, 1 week they're there, or they're not, then the next week they're there. They should just slowly build it up, make it relevant, and then just kind of make it feel natural that if they were to get to that level, like, I know you said not to talk about the NXT thing, but slowly bring it up to that level of what they're doing in NXT, and then it'll all feel good.
Yeah, I completely agree with Keith. You can't just all of a sudden next week give Rosa Mendez 30 minutes of TV time. It's just not going to go over
The Rosa
well.
Mendez Invitational Challenge.
Yes, exactly. So you have to ease people into it, slowly get people to care about one diva. Get them to care about one, and then let's start with that, and then we can move forward. They had that with AJ, and they could have that with Paige, or, potentially any other diva. But yeah, the only one they really had in recent memory was AJ, and now she's gone. So now they're going to do that all over again. Start with one, then go for two, and then eventually...
And don't make it the Bella division.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a whole nother thing. But that is my opinion.
So basically, yes or no, would you mind if the Divas had an equal role? Yes or no, just to conclude.
If they put as much effort...
I wouldn't mind at all.
If they put as much effort, which apparently these days isn't much, into the rest of the show that they did with the Divas, then I would say it's fine. That basically the way NXT does it is they care just as much about the women's division as any other division in NXT. So if they treated it like that on Raw, I think people would care.
Like, I think that's almost a bigger problem, that the fact that they have a slump in a segment. Like you said, Ryan, a women's match in NXT is just another segment. It's not this is the Divas segment.
It's looked forward to.
Yeah.
Being in the women's division in NXT is actually an advantage because people's expectations from WWE are so low that even if the NXT divas have a relatively, a slightly above average match, it actually gets looked on, it gets praised even more, because the bar is so low on the main roster.
Well, so this is going to be a topic that hopefully from here till December, we can talk about this in a different format, as instead of saying, should it be the same or something, it's like, hey, this happened and look at how awesome it is. Now, something that is pretty awesome that keeps happening each and every week is the John Cena U.S. Championship Challenge, which this week we got Cesaro. Obviously, Tyson Kidd is out with, he got some surgery. There's a picture over on social media, he was completely opened up on the back of his neck. It's really dramatic. I don't know why I'm moving my hands like people can see me, but that's the point. And then we got this awesome match. Now, so many people are pointing out that if you were to do a top 5, top 10 matches of the year for the WWE, John Cena would almost be in every match this year, which begs the question.
Yeah.
Number one, what do you think about that? Number two, should we get a U.S. Championship Challenge DVD or Blu-ray set or something? Dead serious about it.
I find it fascinating that after all these years, in 2015, we can say John Cena has the most consistent work rate of great matches and of any superstar on the roster. And it's true. And as far as should we get a DVD, it's at first I thought they'll just make it a network special. But then I realized barely any of the open challenge is available on the network. And that's kind of interesting because it's all on Raw and you can't get those Raws on the network for the most part.
Yeah, until like 60 days after.
Yeah. So maybe they'll make it a network special, like once Cena loses the title plus 60 days, but why not just make it a DVD at that point?
Yeah, exactly. When his whole run with the US titles kind of said and done, you can easily just have that be like one of those collections DVDs. I mean, we still don't really have a proper John Cena career DVD yet. So, I mean, I'm sure this will be an interesting chapter on it, but, you know, as a separate DVD, they could definitely just do one of those collection ones too. But yeah, I mean, Cena's having a hell of a year. I think, without a doubt, this is like his best year, like as far as match quality. This is like probably already up there as one of his best years.
Now, we just talked in the Divas segment where the WWE has sort of conditioned us to these specific expectations. And if you notice in the John Cena matches, one thing he's started to do way more is pull off new moves that maybe for wrestling fans that consume TNA, Ring of Honor, they'll go like, whatever, you know, Amazing Red does the Code Red. Tornado DDT, who doesn't do that? But on Raw, that's not common. So when you see it, it's really different. So is the WWE sort of using John Cena as a way to condition people to maybe new options that can sort of go into WWE?
I'm not sure if Cena is just, or if they're just like allowed to do more. I don't really know, because like most Raw matches, guys generally stick to their general move sets. And then every once in a while on pay-per-views, you'll see people kind of bring out a couple new moves. But Cena lately, it's like, it seems like every match he's had with Owens, he's pulling out a new move. So I don't know if this is just exclusive to the Cena-Owens rivalry where they're, you know, doing these matches basically like Ring of Honor style. Or, you know, because we're going to have to see after the Cena-Owens feud how Cena matches are and if he's still kind of working the same style.
Yeah, I believe more than most people on the roster, Cena has that liberty to just do whatever he wants in the ring. Like, I'm sure there's guidelines like don't do a pile driver, but even that one got broken. So, like, I'm sure he just uses that creative liberty to just really elevate the guys that he's in the ring with, just from all these great matches.
Now, people talk about the Shield and how the Shield has such a big impact in WWE, how storylines, you know, people stepping up their games. I mean, listen to how many wrestlers and podcasts, and they talk about that. With John Cena, with this championship challenge, the scenario that is happening, do you think that once this is done, like, look at all the guys that have had an opportunity, Cesaro this week, it will have an impact that's long-term?
See, I think this is where it all kind of falls apart. Because really think about the first couple of guys that entered the John Cena Open Challenge and where they're at now. Like, look at Stardust. They had an amazing match. Where's Stardust now? So I think it's a very short-term thing. Like, at the Open Challenge itself is awesome, but I don't think it translates into anything else.
Damn.
Yeah, I think Keith makes a pretty good point. It's really just been the Owens Cena feud where he's truly elevated someone. I mean, Neville was kind of on his way to a push anyway, so I mean, it definitely helped Neville, but you can't say there's like a direct correlation because it seems like they had plans for him regardless. But it's still a good way to showcase someone, and they could do something with these guys. They just aren't. Because it could definitely help them.
And think about the fact that at this point, for most of the year, John Cena has beaten like fan favorites. Like, he's like faced off against fan favorites and come out ahead against them. And we as fans are okay with that, where years and years ago, we would just have the pitchforks and fireballs ready.
As long as they look good. Because I remember like a couple years ago before like WrestleMania 29 or something, you know, Cena fought Darren Young and beat him in like 6 seconds. You know what I mean? It was like you just look like garbage. But when he's going against these guys and they're having 20-minute matches, and, you know, if you go 20 minutes against like a main event guy and you look like $1 million, then the people aren't even going to be upset about that because they had so much fun watching the match and they think better of that person for hanging with John Cena that long.
It's all a matter of perspective.
Sir, yes, sir. So I really do hope that after Battlegrounds, whatever happens with the challenge, I want this to continue. Just like you have a match on Raw that can stand up on its own. For anything that can go bad on that show, it's just different. Now, the last thing I want to bring up about Monday Night Raw is our weekly segment where we evaluate the relationship between Dolph Ziggler, Lana, and pretty much everybody else involved at this point. I cringed really hard during Raw. Hard. To the point where I was getting comparisons. It had me thinking during that segment, when is the last time I cringed this hard? And it was when Khali was world champion. I'm not even kidding. Because the whole thing, I was thinking to myself,
really, not like the Bella segments from last year?
Honestly.
Those were the last time I was cringing hard.
Because at least with those segments, you could sort of tell, like, okay, they are trying to have the storyline happen or something.
One. Don't even try and defend them.
Yeah, don't do that.
Hey, I will do, like, the acting was terrible with the Bella stuff, but you could sort of figure out what's going. From day one with this, nothing made sense because Lana in this segment is talking about how Rusev was sort of manipulating her to say specific things, when the whole time we've been trained, like, Rusev crush. Lana is the person that's been leading everything, and now all of a sudden, none of that happened?
Some BS retconning right there. Like, what the hell?
That wasn't cool.
Like, she is the one from Russia. She is the ravishing Russian. Oh, some guy from Bulgaria, he's the one manipulating her about Russia? Like, what a load of crap. Like, see, and people, the crowd will, like, see through things like that. You know, they're smart enough to know that she was the Russian or whatever. Like, and they just know it's BS because they're just trying to get people to like her. And yeah, I don't know. That annoyed me. It's like, I give them credit for at least trying to explain things for once. For once, they didn't just move on to the next segment and pretend like nothing ever happened. But it was a really weak excuse.
No, and the worst part about it is that Dolph Ziggler, to me, was the worst part of the entire segment. Not even Lana. Everything from his acting seemed like when you're handed a script and you're like, I don't like it, but, you know, I'll have fun with it. And the whole thing was just terrible. There's no other way I can explain it other than terrible. Taking it over to you, Keith. Like, what? Just why? How? Tell me something.
You know, I wish I had something witty to say, but I'm just so done with this whole thing. Like, this is a scenario where nobody comes out looking good. Ziggler has fallen so deep into mediocrity because of this. It's insane.
I think Ziggler, he shouldn't re-sign that contract. I know there's rumors one way or the other. Some say he's signed. Ziggler himself says he hasn't decided yet. I would just, do yourself a favor and leave. Like, when Jericho,
Rusev comes off so bad from this. Yeah. Oh, it's just brutal.
I think Rusev's doing the best with what he's got, especially because, he's at least getting TV while he's on the shelf. And, like, even, like, Summer Rae's argument makes more sense than Lana's. But Ziggler just, he needs to do what Jericho did when he left. Like, Jericho was just getting treated like crap. Like, back in, 2006 or something like that, but right before he left that first time.
And he was oversaturated.
He was just kind of in the mid-card, even though he was this great talent, he was just underutilized. And I feel like that's kind of, Ziggler's fallen into that place without achieving that great success first, though, unfortunately.
The funny part is that it had me thinking a couple of months ago, I don't know how long, we were complaining about, just getting matches. People are just randomly becoming number one contenders. What happened when WWE had, sort of like a romance type angle to sort of switch things up? We are getting one. And it's like, we have literally wanted something like this.
And then we realize, this is why.
Exactly. Just because it's a romantic angle, it doesn't mean it works.
When was the last good one? And this could probably be an SRT or something like that.
This will probably be an SRT. But aside from Edge and Lita, I mean, we had Becky and Edge. I mean, we had different things that were happening.
The AJ D-Bry, CM Punk love triangle was interesting, and then they just stopped it. Like,
and then they threw Kane in there.
Yeah, but even then, that one was actually pretty good. They just never had a payoff for it.
And most importantly, it had a purpose, because with AJ, you're like, yes, he's trying to figure out just sort of who's the best option given the scenario. They're all top dogs, but in here, from day one, you think to yourself, what is the purpose of all this? You know, you're getting nothing. Now, I know one of the comments, one of the questions that we got refers to Lana possibly wrestling, which at the end of the segment, we saw her getting physical. So we may be seeing that happening. But, you know, let's take a quick break. Breathe deeply, guys. And let's make a quick couple of announcements. Now, first off, last week was the Fight Night season finale. We went to the future, Ryan. We are survivors. We went to the future. We saw what it's like to see the WWE.
You did good, kids. You did good.
Yeah, we made it back. We're okay.
Yes, and Keith, you died. You were temporarily away from our lives. Ryan was smiling just a little bit too much for my liking, but yeah, we made it back. So if you want to know just what the hell I'm talking about, go over to youtube.com/ByteThatCast. Watch Fight Night. It is our wrestling fantasy league. We commentate it. We live it.
By the way, how am I doing in the future? Like, what's future me like?
You died. You were nowhere in sight, so...
Oh.
I guess your dilemma of live hard, die young really paid off, Keith.
Well, it is ambiguous how many years into the future it was, so don't get too worried.
Yeah, we couldn't get a calendar out. And also, thank you to those that hung out with us last Saturday. We had an out of nowhere Twitch stream, twitch.tv/ByteThat, to play part 2 of Metal Gear Solid 1 on the road to Metal Gear Solid 5 Phantom Pain. I died a lot, a total of 14 times. We had a death counter. Nobody still supports me, but I still do it. And stay tuned to over at our Twitter. We will be streaming possibly this Friday around 7 p.m. More details on the Twitter, but yeah, stay tuned for that. And Mr. McNulty, as we approach episode 100, what's going on?
Yes, we will have, I should say. Let's be affirmative here. We're going to be having a contest that will include a prize, and that contest will be announced on episode 100. So it's not a giveaway. We actually want to see some of your creativity. We know we have some very creative listeners out there. So that will be announced episode 100, so just 3 weeks. So get excited.
Looking at you, Rochi. Can go for the 3-peat on this one.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. And this Saturday, people, remember, WWE is live from Tokyo. This is technically a house show, but it is a packed card. They call it the Beast from the East, but I think the best guy to say this is Mr. Posha. Can you give it?
It's the Beast from the East.
Yes, that's going to be happening this Saturday. And what's cool is that
he was not sitting in a toilet when he said that.
No, and considering he just got oral surgery, you're probably
that hurt.
Yeah. I'm actually going to be waking up very early. It's going to be starting at around 6:30 a.m. Eastern. And if you go over to our YouTube channel right afterwards, I will be posting my full show review, so stay tuned for that. The card and all that, you can go to the WWE.com website. And now
Ron is so dedicated to you guys that he will get up early on a Saturday to make that video. I will, however,
and I am so dedicated
I will sleep
that I will be sleeping, and I will watch that when I wake up.
But you will both be sleeping for me, so I don't need to sleep.
Sure.
Sure. I'll take all your sleep.
Because logic, right? But yeah.
Exactly. That's how it works.
So this is a huge show that's happening, and the only reference that we got during Raw was Seth Rollins saying that Brock Lesnar was going to Japan. What do you guys think about that?
I don't know why you wouldn't promote this. This is like a cool thing that they're doing. I don't know if it's not going to be completely canon or whatever to the regular Raw or whatever, but I would think so. I don't know.
And I mean, you have some huge matches on that card. Like Jericho's going to be there. Cena's going to be there. You have Finn Balor and Kevin Owens. Like, I know the main WWE guys aren't going to be there. Like, I have that house show the same date, and they're promoting the matches of Seth Rollins versus Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns versus Bray Wyatt, Ryback, Big Show, Miz, and the list goes on. Like, those people aren't going to be there. But, like, the big WWE guys are over in Japan. So it blows my mind why they wouldn't promote that show a little more.
Yeah, it's really surprised that they wouldn't at least like mention it a little more, but part of me thinks that maybe they didn't want people to confuse it with like another pay-per-view or something. But at the same time, it's like you got Brock Lesnar wrestling on this show. You have an NXT title match. I don't see why it wouldn't at least get like a little bit more.
Well, at the same time, being devil's advocate, maybe this is their chance to see those people that subscribe to the network, how much are they aware of what's going on? So what happens if they don't promote too much on Raw and they promote this on the side, which the only real promotion that we got was in NXT, because even if you go to the WWE website, it's not too much.
Like I was about to say, maybe this is a test for like just how big the NXT audience is, because that's the real place where they've been promoting the hell out of this with Owens and Balor. So all those NXT people are for sure going to watch it. So maybe that's like a test kind of that way.
At the same time, I love the fact that this is happening because it's not like WWE. You know, when you have all these guys that are going to be going over there and the only thing you have is a match card and knowing that it's going to be happening in Japan, it's cool because you do not know what to expect. So, yeah, it's we don't even know how long it's going to be. That's the interesting part. We don't know show length, like any order, nothing.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
What are house shows?
Kofi Kingston could main event.
What, 3 hours? Or they have like an intermission or something? I don't know how they'll handle that.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? Maybe this is their experiment. I know a couple of people have always asked, like, what if the WWE started publishing house shows? Obviously, there's 20,000 reasons why that can't happen, but they can have a couple of special house shows, which is just like, there's a camera there. If you go to the network, you can see this. And this house show in particular won't be the exact same as the one 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
so
they could only do it like once a month or something because the matches are basically the same.
Yeah, but we'll see what happens. And something else that we're keeping a close eye on, we're not going to talk about it in this episode because it's very much developing. Of course, TNA had their Slammiversary show, which Keith checked out. I watched a couple of clips. Jeff Jarrett is back in TNA, and the interesting thing about it is that he is the owner of Global Force Wrestling. It was openly mentioned in the show, and Jeff Jarrett actually tweeted that he's going to be sitting down with Mike Tenay and discuss the future of both companies working in Destination America. That's going to be happening tomorrow.
If we still had a tweet of the week, I saw the most amazing tweet ever the other day, and it was, Mike Tenay is truly ageless. He's looked 170 for the last 20 years.
Oh, poor the professor. Long live the professor. But yeah, for those listening, what do you think about this whole situation? And quick comment about from you guys. Do you see like a partnership? Like, this is so weird. It's two companies that don't have that much exposure. You know, TNA's exposure is rapidly declining. People are leaving left and right. Low-Key has left the company. Austin Aries has left the company. Magnus has left the company. James Storm has left the company.
Awesome
All these
Kong,
guys.
I think.
Awesome Kong. Like, a lot of
people are dropping like flies. It really surprised me because I was like crediting Jeff Jarrett for like he saw the writing on the wall and he got the hell out of there. And now he's coming back at like the worst possible time. But
well, maybe not. Maybe it's to kind of pick the scraps, kind of
true.
have
He
an
still
out with
has
the old
like
and
a
in with a new
small
thing.
stake of ownership. So maybe he's trying to save it from completely dying.
And who knows? Maybe it's part of a plan. Maybe it's like a rebranding.
Yeah, like what if GFW really envelops TNA? Like if you think about the title, the TNA title started out as the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, right? So now the GFW, if they envelop that title, all of a sudden have this title with a huge lineage, right? So it could be Jeff Jarrett being this way smarter than we know.
Or it could be us thinking way too deeply into this, but hey,
yes.
apparently...
Think of it like the Divas division.
Exactly.
And you thinking that it's a parody of it.
This whole episode can be summarized to, maybe we overthink too much, but that happens every week.
And every time people think TNA is going to die, they find a way to somehow survive. Maybe not thrive, but definitely survive.
And as a closing thought, I'd like to leave you guys with this. Because I checked out TNA a little bit. I dabbled my feet into the little pond that is TNA. And I kind of came to a realization. Kurt Angle is the Sting to TNA's WCW. And that is my closing thought.
Interesting. We'll have to talk about that more off air, sir. But until then, Next week's episode is going to be packed with a lot of stuff on the way to episode 100. Of course, we're gonna be talking about the WWE in Tokyo results that I'm also going to be posting. But before that, we got a ton of questions. First, we're going to be starting off with Twitter. So, Keith, take it away.
Yes, we do. We've still got room in this episode, so let's pack it with your questions, if you know what I mean. So if you want to send us a question, yeah, you know what I mean. If you want to send us a question, you can send it over to twitter.com/ByteThatCast. Send us the old tweetaroo, as they say on the street. Or you can send us an email. Oh, yes, you don't like see people go like, hey, send one of them tweetaroos over that way, do you? Would you? All right. And if you want to send an email, you can send it to bytethatcast@gmail.com. Our first question comes from Mr. Bivin Savio Vega, back in the house, baby. And he is at Harry10204 on Twitter. And he asks, any predictions on how the WWE will be in 2020?
Will it have Barbara Walters?
Probably not.
2020, we got Dean. We got the Shield basically as the top guys. That's pretty much all I can see in the future. Is basically, I mean, we went way too far into the future on Fight Night, so we didn't get to see the 2020.
Yeah,
but it's definitely the Shield as the top three guys, and you know, if you look at rosters over the years, they tend to change pretty frequently. So anyone else you really can't say. And Cena will still definitely be there, I think.
Oh, for sure. He will be the Ric Flair of that generation. But I can kind of see it kind of like what you said, Ryan, just with the addition of the NXT guys that we're so high on right now being up there as well. So throw them into the mix, add the Shield, who we have right now, and that's what I see that time looking like.
Yeah, for me, NXT, I sadly see it becoming a 2-hour show at some point between now and 2020. I don't want that to happen. I think 1 hour is perfect. I also see the WWE doing what they've done with NXT, which is, hey, let's bring recognized independent talent into the scene. That's going to go out to the main roster. So whoever is starting to become top indie guys, they're going to sort of invade the WWE between now and 2020 and just sort of integrate that more into the network. And the WWE is absolutely going to have independent companies that they buy and are part of the network. I'm calling it.
That's a bold statement, but totally. All right, thank you for the question. And our next one comes in from the Bloody Rat at @the_bloody_rat on Twitter. Hey guys, what'd you think about Jericho's latest podcast with the Great Khali? And I have to ask, after the amazing push he got following his debut against The Undertaker, as his career progressed, he literally became a joke. Do you think WWE could have done something differently really to capitalize on the Giant? Or was he just a wrestler that wasn't athletic or fast enough? Thanks.
Great Khali, I think, should have probably never become world champion. You know, he's obviously someone who had, you know, he was a freak of nature. And I think, I don't know a way that you could use him that, you know, if he was just maybe like an enforcer or something, but I just feel like he could never he wasn't mobile enough to really work a convincing match. It was always very difficult. You kind of, like, it was hard to get into it just because he was so immobile, especially towards the end of his WWE career. You know, he could move around a little bit better early on, but still, I never thought he was ever good in the ring, and it never made, I don't know, it just never made any interesting matches.
First off, the podcast, if you haven't listened to, definitely give it a shot. It's hard to understand. Like, a lot of times, Jericho would have to sort of paraphrase what Khali said because it's a little difficult, but you really do get a different perspective on the person, which I really like. For Khali, we've talked about it with so many other guys. What happens when you debut against the top dog? He debuted against The Undertaker and shortly after became world champion. There's not much else to do after that, and then bring up everything Ryan just said. You know, slow, limited wrestler. If he had a part-time role where every once in a while, you know, he was this mercenary, as Ryan said, for this other guy, and he was the wall that people just couldn't get through every couple of months, that would have been fine because it would have hidden his talents or his limitations. but then we were overexposed to him. He was in every match. There was the first ever Punjabi prison match, which he wasn't even involved in due to medical reasons. And just everything about it.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I forgot about that.
Exactly. Like, there's way too much cringy stuff. And that's why it sucks, because whenever you see somebody that big in WWE, it's great when used accordingly. But WWE's way of using them is, hey, let's put them on every week, because that's a good thing, right? It wasn't.
Agreed. I just honestly think Khali's stint in WWE was just a little too long. He was you know what? When the Great Khali was that big monster that was fighting people like The Undertaker and Batista, I didn't mind the Great Khali. I understood the downfalls, but I thought it was all right. And then it all kind of took a turn for the worse when he really started doing the Punjabi Playboy thing. That's when we just kind of wrote the Great Khali off. Maybe it would have been a better career choice to maybe like look into something like movies, where he could have, I think the Great Khali would have been a great, like, say, James Bond villain, something along the lines of Jaws. Like, he could have really fit that niche well. And maybe he will one day.
And he is pursuing acting right now. If you listen to the podcast, yeah, that's pretty much what he's dedicated to now.
I just think he was around for a little too long. But thank you for the question. And Bloody Raid has another question, so I can't thank you yet. All right, we're going to forget that. Thank you. Move on to Mr. Bloody Rat's second question. He asks, another question. Fancy that. Is there a wrestler in the WWE who's kind of hot right now, but won't be in about 6 months? And that person would have to wrestle people like Zack Ryder, Jack Swagger, etc.
Basically the Wade Barrett push. You know, you were Wade Barrett and now you're wrestling Jack Swagger.
Dolph Ziggler.
Anyone off the top of my head?
I really don't think you can say Ziggler.
Dolph Ziggler. He was someone I thought of.
I think, yes, Ziggler is a valid answer, but Ziggler's at the back half of that point. Like, he's in the mediocrity point. He's not somebody that's hot right now that's going to fall. Like, if you ask this question around Survivor Series, then totally, answer. Yes, I would agree with you.
I have a good answer, and I hope it's not true, but I could see the primetime players kind of falling back down. You know, like they've kind of had their moments, and I like that they finally kind of got their push, but tag teams can easily kind of fall off the map quick. I hope it's not true, but that's something I could see happening.
Juan? Oh, wait, you said Dolph Ziggler.
Yes,
right?
Sir.
All right. Well, like Ryan's, I don't want it to be true, but somebody I could totally see this happening to, because he's on a very, very thin line where he can go either way at the moment, and that's Neville.
And this week's Raw was a really good example of that maybe happening.
Exactly. Like, he's hot right now. Neville's awesome, but you can see it taking a turn for the very, very worst.
And Spicy.
Oh my God. So hot right now.
What?
And he's a man that gravity forgot, if you know what I mean.
Anyway, let's move on to the next question.
On to the next question. Yep. The next one comes in from TNA Creative, which, by the way, if y'all don't follow TNA Creative, it's at TNA Creative, all one word, on Twitter. An amazing Twitter account. I've been a fan of this account for years. They are way funnier than I would ever, ever, ever dream of being. Do yourself a favor and follow that Twitter account. But they ask, what are your thoughts on the possible use of Lana as a wrestler?
I don't know about Lana, but Lana...
What do you think about Lana there, Juan?
It's we're gonna have to like replay at some point down the line our predictions for what was gonna happen with Lana, because they've all pretty much been starting to happen. And I think that the moment she steps foot in the ring as a competitor,
it all goes away.
Because that mystique of that person of power is just not gonna be there.
Oh, especially if she's not any good. We do know nothing about her wrestling ability, and from what I heard from, like, I don't know, it was like Wrestling Observer or something on a podcast, they said her original contract was like there was not supposed to be any contact. So obviously her contract has changed. So she was not originally intended to be, like, you know, physical in the ring or anything. So my guess is that she's pretty limited in the ring. So I would make sure, if they really want to keep her character as, like, this powerful person, which has already fallen way off the map, that they should really protect her from wrestling until she's truly ready. So I really hope they just don't rush it if they're going to do it.
For so long, I hoped that Lana would just be the a manager. She would just be kind of like a Paul Heyman or a Sensational Sherry or Elizabeth back in the day, where they never got into the ring. They just were strictly a managerial role. And they seem to keep going further and further away from that. And it's disappointing, really. I don't want to see Lana wrestle. I'd rather, even though she's in a decline right now, I'd rather see her in the point where she's at and just go up instead of becoming an active competitor. Yeah. It's disappointing. But TNA Creative, thank you for your question. On to the next one. From Mr. Danny W., or better known as Balboa's Bomber, asks, has the fake "I can't get up to tag you" reaching out in tag matches run its course? Is it so annoying and repetitive? Basically the hot tag. Are y'all sick of the hot tag?
If you break down wrestling, all of the wrestling from 5 Moves of Doom to the comeback sequences, everything's always sort of been there, and it's even more prominent now. But the tag, it has its place. It's weird when it doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's like tag matches go one of two ways. It's either a squash match or it's a standard tag match that includes a hut tag. The hut tag kind of is like a key piece of getting the crowd like back into the match and for like kind of the big build up to the finish. So it is basically in every match, but I can see how people would find it repetitive because essentially every tag match is worked the same. And maybe you have 1 or 2 hot tags if it's a longer match. But, I can't say that there isn't room for innovation, but I don't have a better answer to it for at least keeping the crowd
involvement. The hot tag is something that when it works. Like, it's awesome. It gets you fired up like, yeah, let's go. Yeah, beat them all down. But it's just used so much and so repetitively. Like, it's one of those things that if it works, it works. If it doesn't, oh boy, it doesn't. So maybe they should kind of restrict use of it and kind of save it for a special occasion. But keep it around.
Then, I don't know, how do you get people into tag matches? I mean,
even regular one-on-one matches sort of have it when they, double clothesline each other or something.
It's the same thing with, like, the sleeper. Like, back in the day in the Attitude Era, the whole put somebody in a sleeper, 1 arm down, 2 arm down, the 3rd arm, they hulk up, basically. That was almost like the hot tag of a singles match back then.
That is something I could do without.
It's a necessary evil, basically. A necessary evil. It kind of has to happen because if you want the crowd to be pumped up for the baby faces, one of them has to get beaten down, and you have to really want to see the other guy get in the ring, and it's just kind of a thing that has to happen to work the crowd.
Good, bad, little in between. But thank you for the question. On to the next one from Mr. James L., or Limey Nerd on Twitter, asks, thoughts on what Cesaro will be up to at Battleground? Might be a little early to ask that, but what do you think? Probably nothing.
I think he'll be handing out popcorn. I don't know, maybe he'll get on the pre-show panel.
Yeah, I see a pre-show match.
Who knows? I don't think... Yeah, pre-show match at best.
Yeah, pretty much.
This is sad.
It's sad. It's dark. It's not cool. Cesaro deserves so much better.
And it transitions properly into the next question.
Yeah, so Cesaro will get more, at least in this episode, because our next question comes from Mr. Nick, or...
Juan's boy.
Or Juan's boy at NKBE1324 on Twitter. He asks, do you think that Cesaro will get a big singles push since Tyson Kidd will be out for a long time? Nope.
I'm optimistic that he will get something. I think, that Cena match was proof that the crowd can really get into Cesaro, and I hope they do something with him because Kidd is out for a very long time. So if he just kind of rots away, that'll be pretty sad because this guy's got so much potential. So maybe not in time for Battleground, but hopefully in time for SummerSlam, they can get something going with Cesaro. If match quality was
indication for anything, he'd be a Hall of Famer. Because we've seen way too many situations where we have this exact same thing. Oh, he had a great match, so you know what's going to happen. I think it's going to be the same thing. He's going to have great matches, and he's just going to be that guy in the roster. It sucks because I really do think that he can do something else. But let's face facts. Whenever he gets on the microphone, it's a little awkward. And I think that's going to definitely damper him. And then not even Oksana can help that.
What?
Well,
what did you just say?
Remember, he debuted with Oksana.
You said I thought you said Sonic. I'm like, what?
No.
All right, well, that makes a little more sense.
No chili dog could ever.
Do you guys remember last year's Elimination Chamber, right before then, when Cesaro beat Randy Orton cleanly and had like an incredible match with John Cena?
I was actually just thinking of that.
That's what we're going to get at best. He's going to have some great matches probably and then just fall back to where he was. It sucks. Oh, God, it sucks so bad. He deserves so much better, but that's probably what's going to happen, and it sucks. On to the YouTube part of our questions, which I guess I don't really mention at the beginning, but if you want to send us questions over at YouTube, feel free to do so. youtube.com/ByteThatCast. Leave it in the comments on one of our great, fabulous videos, and we'll check it out and we'll answer it on the show. So this one comes from Mr. Jack Amundsen. Amundsen. All right, we're going to go with Amundsen. Jack Amundsen asks, when do you think Sheamus will cash in his Money in the Bank contract?
We sort of talked about this a little bit last week. I don't know a specific time frame, but I am going to say whenever Brock Lesnar gets another title opportunity that's not the one at Battleground, he's going to come out, he's going to cash in, he's going to fail, and then I don't know what's going to happen afterwards.
I don't know if I should comment on somebody's name again because it kind of got me in trouble, but saying his name really fast just sounded like an inappropriate Pokemon. But anyway, what do you think of Sheamus will cash in his Money in the Bank? I kind of liked Bloody Rat's suggestion of them teasing it at SummerSlam, and both Lesnar and Roman Reigns, or whatever the match is, they're just like, no way, and they beat the crap out of him. Otherwise, I think it's probably just going to be a one-off time towards like Royal Rumble-ish area, maybe TLC. I feel like if it doesn't happen at SummerSlam, it's not going to happen till like winter time. And I don't know if he's going to win it. I remember Keith saying he really doesn't think he's going to win it. And I'm kind of siding with Keith.
It feels like one of those times, like we've had a bunch of successful cash-ins. Maybe we're due for an unsuccessful one. But let's say in this situation, Sheamus does win when he cashes in the Money in the Bank. I can't really give an exact time frame for when I think it's going to happen, but whenever somebody beats Brock Lesnar, that's when it's going to happen. Somebody's going to beat Brock, then Sheamus is going to cash in on that person.
So kind of like Daniel Bryan with Randy.
Kind of, yeah. All right, Sir Jack, thank you for the question. And now on to the email questions. Our first one comes in from Monica G., and she asks, who do you think has been the best heel of the PG era so far? Very interesting question.
I had to really think about this one because PG era, what are we saying, like 2008-ish is where it starts? 2010 maybe? I don't know. Because, I mean, it's like CM Punk, you think, but at the same time, it's just like he was too cool. Like, you liked him too much.
I don't think he was really a great heel. He was just like a cool heel.
Yeah, he was just a cool heel. I really think Brock Lesnar's run was one of the best at just purely being like a heel. I mean, what better way to get people to not like you by just not showing up most weeks? So I really think Brock was actually in this PG era one of the best. If Edge counts, I think towards, if he's towards the beginning of the PG era, he's up there. And Seth Rollins is definitely kind of, etching his name in there, but I think it's still a little early.
There's no better answer than Chris Jericho. Think about when Chris Jericho came back. Everybody's like, oh my God, Jericho and all that. When he did the jacket thing, said nothing the first week. His character kept changing. He got rid of anything that, how often does that happen? Anything that people like, he got rid of. He didn't even want merchandise. That's how devoted he is. He basically took a pay cut in some form just to get the character over. Feuded with Shawn Michaels, punched his wife. I mean, do I need to say anything else? He had the...
That's a really good answer.
Yeah, Big Show, and when he had the Jericho show and feuded with DX, with Rey Mysterio, those matches were freaking awesome. With Edge, and of course, with CM Punk even, with the whole when he poured like the alcohol thing. I mean, he was
pouring the Jack Daniels.
When he slipped on Jack Daniels.
Exactly. He was a champion in the PG era, and even when he wasn't really PG, because he was pushing the boundaries really hard. I mean, he punched a woman in a crowd, which it was because of other situations that happened, but it was because people were so riled up when they saw him. He had to point out, people, that's a character. That is not me. So please let me live. So Jericho.
Now I kind of have two answers to this. One answer is who I think is the best, and the other one is who is my favorite. So I think the best heel of this current era, I'm going to have to say Triple H, ever since he pedigreed Daniel Bryan at that SummerSlam. Just, he does so well at playing that, like, that prick that's in charge, that he just throws those subtle cheap shots at us, the crowd, and they're just...
But better than Stephanie?
In his own way, yes. In his own way, like...
I would argue that
Stephanie plays a real
heel.
good biznatch. But I think Triple H is the better character than Stephanie. But that's my opinion. Now, as far as...
At least for getting people over. I feel like Stephanie just cuts people down
because,
and they never
with
recover.
Triple H... You can get revenge on Triple H. Stephanie's still kind of untouchable for the most part, but she's forcing you to feel her.
That's something else.
Oh my god.
That's who I think is the best. Now my favorite is easily R-Truth during his heel run, when right before he started teaming with The Miz with his crazy conspiracy, coming out dressed like a Confederate soldier, singing to Vince McMahon and Stone Cold Steve Austin, crazy R-Truth. That is the best
he was awesome.
heel of this era. It was incredible. This is my weekly plug to say, if you haven't seen it, go see it. And Monica also says, and thank you for this, by the way, I stumbled across your podcast a couple months ago, and I look forward to it every week now. Your views on everything are wonderful, and you three seem to always make me see things from a different point of view. Keep up the good work, always in your corner. So thank you very much.
We will stay in that corner.
We will stay.
I just want to thank y'all. No, thank you. That it does mean a lot to us to get feedback like that, so we appreciate it.
It makes me feel like less of a crazy person talking to
you're
myself
still
into a microphone.
Crazy, but
I said less. I know.
Oh my god, wait, somebody likes you. Anyway, we have one more question.
Anyway, indeed, our final question of the show comes from Mr. Zach Hardy, and he asks, what are some of the biggest tragedies in wrestling history, in your opinion? And if they had not happened, what would have been the outcome of that tragedy not happening?
All right. There was, I mean, you can think of plenty of tragedies. The whole Benoit tragedy. You have Owen Hart tragedy. There's so many, Brian Pillman. It's crazy. I mean, you would just think that hopefully these guys would have had better careers. I mean, I think actually Zach asked a question that we didn't get to answer last week about, had Eddie not died, what would have happened with Benoit? I mean, there's so many things you could speculate, but you would hope that these guys would have been, just living better lives, maybe just working at the Performance Center or whatever. And, Owen Hart, you would hope he'd be retired and in the Hall of Fame by now. It's really hard to predict these type of things because, if one thing is different in the past, then so many other things that, happen could have
Ryan's
gone completely
pretty much
differently.
brought up all the obvious ones. There's one that doesn't get brought up often enough, and it's kind of random, but Lance Cade's death. For those who don't know, Lance Cade was in WWE. He was one half of a tag team with Trevor Murdoch, and right up until the end of his career, he became sort of Jericho became his mentor as a storyline. Cade was actually set to have Jack Swagger's original theme, the Get On Your Knees type song. So Lance Cade came out to an instrumental version of that. And the other tragedies like Brian Pillman, all these things, these are people that, Crash Holly. I mean,
Crash
that
Holly
was
Test is another one.
Yeah, there's so many, but at least with those guys, there was a career that happened before that. So at least you could say, Crash Holly, he was in this thing with Bob Holly. Test, he had TNA, all these things. But then with Lance Cade, here was a guy who was finally getting that opportunity, that one-time opportunity that people rarely get. You have Chris Jericho by your side, and then he dies of a heart failure at just 29 in 2010. So that to me was something that really hit me, because I always thought there was something about that guy. And it's a shame. He died, we're 25. He died less than 5 years, being less than 5 years older than us.
Man, that's crazy when you really put that into perspective. But I'll have to get you guys to help me out a little bit on this one. But to kind of go on what you said, Juan, I think one of the biggest tragedies in wrestling that really has a big effect on the product today would be the entire Christopher Nowinski situation. How he had suffered like a really bad concussion that basically put him on the shelf permanently. And I think because of that, or at least that caused the early steps to really like take control and take charge of concussions in wrestling and really taking care of superstars.
Not even just wrestling, but like sports in general. He had a big part to do with like NFL handling concussions and stuff. So I mean that's actually really good that you brought that up, because that's like one situation where a tragedy actually created a greater positive.
And similar,
so that's a really interesting
Lance,
way to answer it.
That was another guy that I really wanted to see what would have happened. Of course, it sucks that he got those concussions and had to retire, but yeah, look at the positives. I mean, that guy didn't just change WWE, he changed sports as a whole. So
saved, uncountable lives.
Basically, something great came out of a terrible situation.
So thanks for your question.
Sir, yes, sir. We have gotten a ton of emails, a ton of Twitter questions, YouTube. Thanks to everybody that supports us, checks us out. Leave whatever you feel. You are part of this family. Keith mentioned it. ByteThatCast@gmail.com. And for everything else, Mr. McNulty, take it home.
All right, well, we want to thank everyone for listening to another edition of the Byte That podcast. Before we go, just a few quick plugs. Of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ByteThatCast, where this Thursday we will have another SRT where we are talking about a WWE and its relation to sports, how it differs from traditional sports. It was actually a really cool conversation, so you'll definitely want to check that out. And if you haven't seen the season finale of Fight Night, do yourself a favor and check that out. We've gotten a ton of great feedback, and it will blow your mind, so go watch it. Of course, you can contact us on social media by following us on Twitter @ByteThatCast. Send us a tweet if you get a question for the show, if you just want to say hi. And of course, we've got our Instagram. You can search Byte That. Any email questions, as Keith said earlier in the show, ByteThatCast@gmail.com. Twitch TV One's going to be streaming MGS Metal Gear Solid this Friday. You can go and follow us over at twitch.tv/ByteThat. I think Keith will be joining him as well. Maybe I'll show up, who knows? And maybe I'll be streaming some games relatively soon, so just stay tuned. If you hit that follow button, you'll know exactly when that's going on. So once again, thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next week.